It's bad. Anime.
Hey everybody, I'm John.
And I am Rob.
And this is Bad Anime, the podcast where we decide, is this anime bad? And today we are talking about a really interesting anime that we talked about on our Summer Trailers episode.
Yeah, we watched a trailer for this exclusively for the title, because when you see the title, The Lucifer and the Biscuit Hammer, you kind of have to dive head first.
You just get a little curious. Everybody gets a little curious at some time in their life. This is my awakening sexually.
Oh, don't lie. You've been awakened for a while now, sailor.
Fully awake, up and operational. But yeah, we decided to take this new anime and do a 3-episode rule on it, watch the first 3 episodes and see if we like it, if we're going to stick to it or if we're not going to stick to it. And I guess we can just get started with saying, which one is Lucifer? I kind of lost track.
It turns out, because I remember this, we made our predictions in the trailer, because this trailer coincidentally didn't have any subtitles.
Oh, yes, that's right.
So we had no idea what was going on. At one point, we just saw a lizard, a dorky teenager, someone who looks younger, and then a giant fucking, what looks like a gavel hanging over Earth.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So we were like, all right, so is the lizard the Lucifer? And I guess I'm assuming that giant thing is a biscuit hammer.
A biscuit hammer. I guess, which they kind of maybe explain why it's Biscuit Hammer at some point, but we'll get to that when we get to that.
No, they never explain it. It's just called the fucking Biscuit Hammer.
I think they actually did. I caught something. I caught a little nugget. It was very easy to miss. Well, okay, briefly, because we're talking about it right now, so we might as well.
Yes.
But like, what it basically was, they made an allusion to it. Like, I think in episode 1 or 2, that it was like a hammer that would smash the earth, like a baking hammer would smash like
a cookie hammer,
a cookie hammer, like a biscuit, to make a biscuit. I guess you need to like tenderize it or some shit. I don't really know, but they were like a hammer tender. It was a stretch, like a hammer tenderizing a biscuit before you bake it. And I was like, it's a weird way to describe that. I don't know if you actually need a hammer to tenderize a biscuit.
That was
or
weird.
If you even need to tenderize a biscuit.
If this show was called Lucifer and the Meat Hammer, that would have made sense. But
right, that would have made sense. But no, it's for a biscuit and for baking.
And also,
I guess that's the reason
we joked a lot about
hammer.
We joked a lot about biscuit hammer being a euphemism, but meat hammer is a way better euphemism.
It is way better, and this euphemism isn't even like good enough. A biscuit hammer. What do I hammer with a biscuit? What do I biscuit with a hammer?
Well,
it doesn't make any
it's funny
sense.
because they say risk it for the biscuit, so you can insinuate that you're hammering the biscuit anyway.
Anywho,
so there's a dork involved, and he wakes up. Mm-hmm. And I already forgot his.
There's a
name.
Dork involved, and he wakes up.
Fuck! I forgot the main.
Great way to start.
I forgot the main character's name already.
Yuhi.
Yep. Yuhi.
I just think about Yu-Gi-Oh spin-offs, and it comes very quickly to me.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, so that's the most easy way to remember by far. So we have our residential dork Yuhi. He wakes up, and there's a big talking lizard on him saying, "We have to save the world." So he throws the lizard out his window a few times,
which is so funny.
Yeah.
I can't believe I have to stop this early to give my feelings, because I thought that shit was so funny when this lizard just appears on him and he's like, "We have to save the princess. Will you join me in this fight as my knight to save the earth?" And then this guy does not freak out that there's a lizard on him. Does not care. He literally just picks it up. Like they do the anime trope where like you can't see his eyes like in the glasses, and he like walks outside and just throws the fucking throws lizard. He's like, oh God. And he comes back. He's like, why did you do that to me? Why did you throw me? And he just does it again.
Yeah.
And he just doesn't even recognize this lizard as a character in this show for the first like 10 minutes of the episode. And the lizard's like, I wonder why you're ignoring me. We're trying to save the world over here. And he just like does not address it because he's like, maybe I ate something weird. Like, I don't know. I've been seeing shit. My term papers do. Like, maybe I'm just stressed a little bit.
Yeah, no, he keeps making excuses, and the lizard's like, no, I'm real. And then he starts freaking out like, oh my God, there's a lizard on me. And the lizard's like, yeah, you have magic powers now, you asshole. And one of the first things he does is like, I have telekinetic powers, sweet. So he lifts up his teacher's skirt from very far away.
That was one of my favorite things that happened in the first 3 episodes. He was like, yeah, so this lizard, right? His name is also Sir Crescent.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess, going further into the baking trope that this show has, I guess.
Did the mangaka just get stranded in a bakery, get very hungry, and then start making shit up? I don't know.
Maybe. He probably didn't even think about it, probably.
He just likes bread.
Just likes bread and croissants and biscuits, I guess. I don't know if that's going to be a thing for the show, but this lizard, his name is Sir Crescent, and the entire time he's like trying to convince this guy to like, oh, like Yuhi, like you got to join me as my knight and whatnot. And then Yuhi's like, nah, bro, like I just want to live a normal life. Like I don't really care. He's like, but I'll grant you one wish. And he's like, oh, I mean, that sounds interesting. And he's like, I'll also give you this ring that can help you lift things and do weird stuff and kind of fly maybe a little bit. And he's like, all right. And as you said, first thing he does, his professor's skirt is lifted, which is just, you know, I there are times when I'm watching a show and I'm like, oh yeah, this is Japanese. I forgot.
Oh yes, I forgot this was made in Japan.
I forgot. Oh yes, they are speaking Japanese, but there are times where I just need to be reminded. You know,
I just need to be reminded. I really need the biscuit hammer to drive the point home,
dude. And he gives him that magic ring thing, and the lizard's like, all right, so what you gotta do? And he literally just like uses it immediately without any explanation, and he just immediately fucks. And I'm like, dude, how do you put this together?
So what he does, he summons like little telekinetic force fields, which, you know,
right.
So he can move stuff around. He can like basically like you said, he kind of fly, because he can like lift himself on the field. There's actually a couple moments where he's training to like, you know, lift himself with the force field a little bit. So that was cool. And so then we get a little bit, and not even in the first 3 episodes, not a whole lot of explanation as to who the fuck the villain is. Because it just gets explained, there's an evil mage who wants to destroy the world, so there's a giant hammer over us. And occasionally there's going to be like golems around, so be careful. And
yeah, it's kind of like a weird exposition. But,
very weird.
You're
and
just going to think of it very quickly.
We have these golem things, which are basically, just imagine like, if you took like if you remember the putties from the first season of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, all you have to do is like melt one of those and make it bigger, and you suddenly have our villains, like these weird. It
also kind of like with a tinge of Flats from SpongeBob.
Yes, very much so.
Like that, like Flats the Flounder, kind of like he's on like the side and has like the 2 eyes. They kind of look like Flats, and they do like to kick butts, so that does make sense.
Yeah, and these golems, and they're like, basically there's these weird amorphous kind of masses. They look like, like I said, they look like big humps of clay almost, with weird hands. Yeah,
they do look like clay. They're a weird makeup, I think, on them. Very interesting.
So we get the first one, and earlier in the show, we see when Yuhi's throwing the lizard out the window, his neighbor's a young girl. Well, I don't know if she's younger, but she looks younger. And then, spoilers, in episode 3, they totally kiss at some point, so I'm like, I don't know what's going on. But, So the younger girls next door, like their neighbors, and then at one point, our boy Yuhi's getting chased by a golem, and the girl just punches the golem. It's like, oh, you're also involved in all this crazy shit.
And then she is the aforementioned princess that the lizard was talking about.
Yeah, and the lizard's freaking out like, oh my god, princess, you're here. This guy doesn't want to do anything. And Yuhi's like, I am very confused.
Yeah, I do not know what to do. And she's like, yeah, that's right. But it's weird. She's like, oh yeah, like That's right. I'm the princess, but I don't really have much memory. But I do also sometimes. It's very weird because I feel like she's kind of in the middle of like, oh, yes, I am a princess. And also like, oh, no, I'm just a regular person. But I also know a lot about all these things. And I get it. And I don't know which way she's going. Yeah, it's a little confusing. They didn't really pick a lane with that one.
The whole thing was a little weird in that regard. And the whole show is weird in most regards.
Yeah, it's a little weird.
So at one point,
she kind of goes off to explain like after that, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm this princess, and I'm gonna try to assemble a team to defeat that mage and get rid of that hammer." And then that's when I think Yuhi sees the hammer for the first time, or because like the lizard guy or the princess, I think, is like, "Well, you can't see it until you know it's there," and he's like, "Okay." And then he looks up at the sky, and there's that giant fucking hammer gavel thing just hanging over the earth. And he's like, oh, my God. And then at that point, he kind of like buys in a little bit. And he's like, okay, like, I guess we have to do something about this. And I'll help you out. All right? Okay.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
And then next thing you know, right before episode 1 ends, the girl, the name.
It's Sanidare?
Yeah, Samidare, yep. They just call her Sami a lot, so we'll do the same thing here.
Yeah, Sami. We'll call her Sami.
Make it easier for both of us. Sami goes, yeah, they're not going to destroy the planet because my fist is going to be the one that crushes the planet. And that's how the first episode ends. Like, what?
Wait, yeah, like, so you want to save the world and then hit it really hard.
Yeah, so that...
very well.
And then Yuhi's like, word, I hate this world too. I definitely will swear fealty to you. And I was like, okay, this is getting a little Dom and Subby out of nowhere.
Yes, it really does. It feels that way, which is why, like, when they kiss in the 3rd episode, I'm like, this has got some weird, like, dog and owner energy. This has got some strange, like, Dom Sub thing going on. Like,
a lot of kink shit going on.
Yeah, and he's also Yuhi spends a lot of time in his mind wrapped in chains, so that probably has something to do with the kink.
That I think that a lot of his kink stems from most. It reminds me of the one TikTok where it's people going, "I've turned all my trauma into kinks."
And I guess that's what Yuhi did, because he does have like a little bit of trauma that just like bleeds in the first few episodes and then gets expanded on as we go.
Exactly.
But that's like about his grandfather. I guess just like because his parents are dead, and it was pretty gruesome. Like his dad was an investigator and then got like killed, and his body got dumped in something. And it was pretty like rough. And,
yeah, he was busting drug smugglers, and then one of his best friends stabbed him in the back, and his partner stabbed him in the back, and he got killed, and his body got dumped in the mountains. And then apparently his mom had a mental breakdown, and just no one has seen her since.
Yeah. So it's
weird.
A little weird. And the grandpa had to raise him after that. And because of those events, the grandpa has always instilled in him that these thoughts of like, okay, you don't want to be friends with anybody. You don't want to be like your enemies will stab you in the gut. Your friends will stab you in the back, or something like that.
Yeah, and you must live a very middle of the road existence. Where at one point, he brings a friend over when he's younger, and his grandpa chains him up and throws him in a dark room for like 3 days.
Yeah, it's pretty.
So that happened.
Pretty. A lot of overreactions from this grandpa character. A lot of overreacting. And
this is the part of the show where we learn even the show doesn't care about the Biscuit Hammer. It's just having more fun exploring these characters.
It is kind of at a certain point, and that's really like episodes 2 and 3 kind of. Like there is a bit of a tussle in episode 2 with like another one of those like fucking golems, like flats golems.
And there's another one in episode 3 too, which sounds memorable.
Yeah, but it's just like it happens, I guess, less frequently as you go on. And they kind of just focus more on like Yuhi and his trauma for at least like episode 3 is entirely about that, because he gets a call and then his auntie is like, oh, your grandpa's very sick and in the hospital, you should visit. And he's like, oh, I don't want to. And the lizard's like, you're not going to visit your dying grandfather, you dick? And he's like, yo, bro, you do not know what this motherfucker has done to me.
My grandpa's kind of an asshole.
He's kind of an asshole, abusive, and a horrible person, and he's caused me all my trauma, which is now why I look up to my queen and princess and want to bone her.
Yeah,
essentially.
Oh, this fucking show. But yeah, no,
Yeah,
all that happens.
It's got some weird layers.
And then eventually Yuhi goes to see his grandpa, and it's like, and the grandpa's like, yo, I was a dick. And Yuhi's like, fuck you, dude. You don't get to be sorry. You've destroyed me. And,
ooh, yeah.
And I'm just like, okay, cool direction here where Yuhi doesn't automatically forgive him. And
good.
Yuhi references the fact he's never really going to forgive him. And it's just, it shows how complicated the whole situation is. When that level of trauma, especially when it's a parental unit, completely, they'll be using you for years.
Yeah, right, for many, many years.
So that was a lot going on there, and I didn't expect this layer of discussion, of trauma and all this discussion surrounding it in a show called The Lucifer and the fucking Biscuit Hammer.
Yeah, did not expect any of that. I kind of expected the next two episodes, the episodes 2 and 3, to fall in line more with episode 1 and just be like, okay, it's like just a weird romp of a time, and we're just like, trying to stop this big mage who's got this hammer, but there are a bit of like some interesting logistical difficulties with these like learning to use his powers and stuff. Like I thought that was gonna be what we got, but no, we just like ended up getting kind of a bit of a novella about this whole thing about him and his grandfather and like the trauma that exists between them, and then him kissing the princess in the 3rd episode pretty early on. And
here's the thing with this show, it feels like everything is happening a little too quickly. I mean,
it is very fast. It's not like, it's not like Spirit Chronicles level of fast where he's like, all right, then I traveled for 8 years and now we're here. but it is a bit like, it does like everything is accepted very quickly. Everything goes very quickly. Outside of the first 5 minutes, he's already
even,
like
I'm a knight. The tonal change is a little too quick. I mean, in Ava, for example, it takes a while for everything to go south in terms of everyone's mental health degrading. On episode 3, they're like, all right, let's deal with all his trauma right now. I'm like, guys, it's a bit too soon.
Yeah, we still gotta know like what's going on. We don't know the character exactly. We don't know anybody around him. Like this princess character is like Sami is also like, I don't really know her even. And and this lizard is kind of like, the lizard is a very interesting component because he's probably my favorite character. I just find him hilarious.
He's just funny.
Because he's just that classic like good soldier kind of guy, like good soldier character where he's always like thinking about like, how do we do this? How do we protect Earth? I will do anything to protect the princess. Like very like Rock Lee kind of type. And as it goes on, I'm just like watching this like dude in his like high school years dealing with all of his childhood trauma, and then I look next to him and I'm just like, oh, and there's a fucking lizard right here that wants you to save the Earth with a princess. Okay, he kind of lost his place after the first episode a little bit, like that, because the tone shifted so much, and I was like, what are you doing here still? Like, are you enjoying this? Like, care to comment? Do you like?
That's the really thing that struck me about the show is the goddamn tonal shifts. And we meet the princess, and at first she's like, I'm gonna destroy the planet, and the next episode she's like, I love this planet. And then like there's like a weird workaround. She's like, yeah, I'm just trying to save everybody, but it's like, no, what are you saying here, Sam?
It doesn't make any fucking sense. It does not make any sense. I thought like in the first episode after it ended, when she was like, I want to hit the Earth with my fists, I at first thought of it as like some kind of like, oh, I'm gonna try my best and I'm gonna do my best, and like kind of like in Gurren Lagann when he's like, oh, you're gonna your drill is gonna pierce the heavens, or something kind of like anecdotal that doesn't really like mean she's gonna destroy the Earth. But like then I got thinking, I was like, I mean, like I don't know the character, so I guess like she could just fucking yeet the Earth out of existence after she gets rid of this hammer. She could just be an absolute bitch and just want to destroy the Earth forever. So
but she basically wants to like, kind of a scorched earth scenario where she wants to take over the world afterwards. That's what I was able to glean.
Yeah.
And Yuhi's like, good, I hate this world and everything about it, so I'm ready to swear fealty to you. Also, let's totally make out. It's like, wait a minute.
What are any of these characters' loyalties, really? I think is the main problem is like, what, I don't know the motivation. The only motivation that's clear is the lizard's motivation to get like, all right, because he's like, Sir Crescent, he's like, all right, let's get you to, we just got to take care of that hammer. We got to protect the princess, and we got to do both those things. And I guess I get that a little more.
Well, they also make it kind of clear that his memories before Yuhi are fuzzy. He's like, I don't really remember what's going on before this.
Yeah, that's true.
Because we meet the talking dog who's with another one of these knights.
That's right.
This guy just kind of shows up and goes, I am this person. We're together. Cool. I have to get to my job. It's like, who were you?
Who is that? And then like there's a weird, I guess like there's more to discover about that, because there is a weird like sidebar early on where the lizard's like, yeah, no, like our greatest knights, I can't be here to vanquish the hammer right now. Yeah, our greatest knights, you know, a dragon, a bear, and a unicorn. And I'm like, what? Where? Okay.
Where are these people?
Where are they? And if they could take care of it, why aren't they?
Yeah, what are they doing?
It's just weird. A lot of questions, but none that I particularly am very invested in getting answered. Just ones that I was like, just tell me this. Just why?
Yeah, riddle me this. I don't know. I'm just confused.
Yeah, it's a bit confusing. But yeah, that's kind of where we leave off on the third episode. And like that's kind of like a bit of a cliffhanger for the kiss. And I think like if you're talking about like 3 episodes in, like, are people still going to watch? Like with a hook like that, it's possible. I think like putting in the kiss at the end of the 3rd episode, I think is very strategic. Yeah. And that gets people to maybe kind of like, okay, let's see like where this goes, like what happens to these characters, and let me tune in for episode 4. But the question is
sitting there with rock on hard stiffies going, yes, let's get to go to the next episode.
Going like 4. But the question is, do we like it enough to stick with it? Is it something that you appreciated enough to give it another chance? All I'm saying is, are you in or are you out?
Well, this show should just be happy that it exists, because I did a little bit of research after I watched it.
Oh, tell me.
The original manga for this came out in 2005 and ended in 2010.
Wow.
And there's been no new media since. So this just randomly got... Because I was looking at the character designs, and I'm like, okay, this is very run-of-the-mill mid-2000s character designs. Kind of weird. It threw me off a little bit. Because like kind of the lack of how daring it was in terms of character designs. And then I looked up, it was from 2005, so I'm like, well, that explains why I thought the characters look like they're from the mid-2000s, because they are.
Makes sense. Because they are, right.
And just some of the cliches, like, you know, because even like the lifting the teacher's skirt thing, that's a trend that kind of died off by like the late 2000s. And and some of the plot points, it just felt kind of rehashed to me. And I'm like, no, not rehashed. This is part of the original hash. This is just
this is the OG hash, Denny's.
Yeah, this is just very much of its time, but not in a bad way. I'm just so confused how they decided 11 years, presumably. Let's say if they decided to produce this. Let's say they picked up in 2020, and it takes 2 years to produce this thing.
Right.
Who 10 years after the completion of this manga said, "Yo, I know what we need to do. We need to break out the fucking biscuit hammer and have a good time." So this
and then everyone was like, "Oh, you mean that manga that was written in 2005 to 2010?" He was like, "Wait, what? Sorry, I was talking about something else."
No, I totally meant something else. Oh, let's go with the manga. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that though. That sounds good. That sounds all right.
that sounds good. It's not like I wanted to pound some biscuit. Anyway.
Anywho.
So I'm happy for the people, especially because imagine reading this manga in 2005 and then hearing of the show coming out now.
Yeah.
A full 17 years after the fact.
Happy for anybody that read the manga a long time ago and actually really, really liked it. So I mean, good on y'all.
Good on y'all. But for me personally, I was intrigued at a few points. I liked because I thought the chains were just a metaphor. And I kind of liked how they weren't.
Me too. And then it just like wasn't. And then I was like, oh no, actually chains. Okay.
So
very well.
The show did have clever moments in there.
It did.
So there was definitely stuff to praise about the show. I mean, it looks good. I mean, it's modern in every sense of the word in terms of production value. So it looks good, ready to air. For me, the main characters aren't interesting enough for me to really keep going, and we still yet to see any sign of the overarching villain, and it's not pulling me in enough to keep going. So I gotta say I'm out. I'm just like, good attempt, some clever moments in there, Maybe the manga's good, but I just wasn't too into it.
Yeah.
The fight scenes were just nothing to really write home about. There was strategy involved, which is cool, which I'm always a fan for tactical fight scenes. Yep. I, as a big Ava boy, where half the where those fight scenes were just basically kaiju battles of them going, how the fuck do we beat this thing? So
exactly. So that was nice.
So I do appreciate that type of fight scene, but it just wasn't exciting. It wouldn't have enough of that rah to get me invested in the action scenes. I mean, Sami throwing a car made me laugh hysterically. But,
that was really funny.
But this just wasn't. I think, how do I put this? It would work better for me if it was more absurd.
I completely agree, actually, because I thought that this was going to be so ridiculous and so dumb, and like it is very ridiculous, but it doesn't really hit that level of like silliness that I think it could get to or could do. I think it maybe did a good job early on with doing that, but as things got on, we got more into like traumatic events and whatnot. It got a little like it just didn't feel right for what they were doing in that moment for the show. No. I feel like if that came across like later in the show and stuff, and they got to maybe like
if there's more of a build up between the relationship between Yuhi and his grandfather, if there was just more.
You drop a nugget here, you drop a nugget there, you expand on it later. It's like, like Yuhi, like you get to know the character, like, he's all this, he's all that. But, there's a part of him that we don't really know much about and we have to discover a little bit about. And I feel like that keeps you kind of wanting to know about him and make him like a compelling character. But yeah, like I do agree with, I wanted it to be more absurd, and maybe that's just because of the title or just because of the silly premise. But I think it just like it leans itself in as a show that I feel like should be a lot more absurd, a lot funnier, and it was kind of funny at moments, but like
there
a lot
definitely
more.
Was some good comedic moments, but it just wasn't enough. It just wasn't enough.
It just wasn't enough. Like I thought it was just gonna be like a dumb like bombastic humor for 20 minutes and just like things exploding and people flying and stuff like that. That
might have been a better call to make here, honestly. It's just
I think so too. And then they just got a little too deep, I think, into
quick
kind of like depressing things, and like that's okay for animes to do, and I think it's a great thing. But
I fucking love
as you said, like you needed time, you need to develop that, and you need to like execute that well, and not just be like, oh, by the way, he's sad sometimes.
This show was just, if I had to compare it to anything, it'd be a very aggressive hand job, or it was just go. It's like, no, we need to build this up a little bit.
Like, hold on, at least get me some lube for this.
To quote Jim Cornette, travel up and down the valley, tickle the taint a little bit, and there we go. But we just weren't there yet. I mean, we needed more time with these characters. We needed more time to understand the world. Maybe seeing the villain would have been nice. That's all I'm saying.
That would have been nice. That would have been knowing who like the enemy is, like who they're fighting, what they're fighting for, how they're gonna get this damn hammer out of the sky. Like some stuff like that would have been cool.
Yeah, episode 3 felt like it should have been episode 9, and it should have lasted the rest of the series.
Yes, I agree completely.
But who knows?
I think like episode 2 or 3 would have been far more compelling if like the princess was like, all right, so Yuhi, now you got to figure out how we're gonna destroy this hammer in the sky. And he's like, what do you mean I got to figure it out? and then he's got to like, I don't know, like Google some shit and be like, oh God, how do you like fucking, I don't know how to do it. Like, do I like get on a plane or something? I feel like that would be like far more hilarious and like what the show would be.
It would have been funny. That's the big thing. Yeah, I would love to see this, like the scene of him going on Google, like how to destroy giant hammer in sky.
Right. Because like Yuhi is the straight man in all this, as like the person, he's like the Jason Bateman and everything Jason Bateman is in. It's like everything's crazy around him, and he's like
grounded.
How do I like go about my normal life knowing these things now? So that it would just be far more compelling, and like I feel like a lot of different directions they could have taken this. Maybe like the manga did a better job, but as for me, I am also out. I thought it was fine, but nowhere near exciting, stupid, or compelling enough to keep me interested.
Yeah, there just, simply put, there just wasn't enough here yet.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, not enough yet.
Maybe it's going to get really good later on, and if anyone listening to this did give it the remainder of the series as the time the series ends, please let us know. If shit gets awesome, we may reconsider.
Yeah. But, let us know if it gets good, but in the meantime, we will not be watching. We will be moving on to other things.
We'll be watching a lot of delinquent schoolgirls probably. It's because that's the kind of anime crowd we are.
That's the kind of shit we like, baby. Because we're men. But anyways, thanks for listening, y'all. As we said, we're out. Neither of us are in for this. Neither of us are watching episode 4. But if you do, let us know how it went. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope your biscuit hammer gets smashed tonight. Have a good time.
Yeah, it's bad.
Wow, oh my god, what a rousing podcast of anime conversation. Am I right, my compares? Am I right, my weebdom? Anywho, yeah, you can send us a message if you want. Did you like this podcast? Did you hate this podcast? Do you want to kill me? Do you want to drench me in Calaxosaur blood and watch me drink it? That's fine. Just send us an email at badanimepod@gmail.com or DM us on our Instagram at badanimepod, all one word. You can also find us on YouTube as Bad Anime, and you could leave a comment on whatever video you want to leave a comment on. We'll read them all anyways. We don't care. I love you. Kiss, kiss.
In your ear. Podcast Network.